we are going to take time. We're going to walk through the steps in how to transfer your SGPA from Anthology Portfolio to Pearson. We'll talk about what you're going to do with your score when you get your score, and then we're going to have some cake and have some reflection on our challenges and celebrations from our experiences. Does that sound good? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I don't know, have you seen me around? I've been here with Nana for about 2 months, and I'm about to leave. I'm moving to Minneapolis. I'm a Fulbright visiting scholar. I'm also a teacher, so that's why I didn't want to miss the chance to know all people who is studying for being a teacher. So I asked for the possibility to present like the reasons why I'm here. And so today I want you to know me a little bit and carry out a project, a research project in Colombia. So the idea is also that you get to know what I'm doing in Colombia and maybe why not make some connections. So yeah, my name is Julie Gonzalez. And before sharing the reasons why that brought me here to St. Mary's, I want to share a few information about me. So I'm from Bogota. Have you ever been to South America? Do you know any country in South America? So I'm from Bogota. I'm from the capital. Bogota is a large city with more than 7 million people. There are 100 universities, more than 100 universities and colleges around this city. There are a lot of neighborhoods, and they are divided according to the social economic status. So it's just to give you an idea how it is because I work in a low income status family neighborhood. I'm ready for the winter. This is not my first time in Minnesota. My first experience traveling abroad was here in the United States. And it was at the time I was like an Spanish assistant teacher in Eden Prairie in a school that was bilingual. The name is Eagle High Spanish American School. So I used to be there. So I spent the full winter that time. It was 12 years ago. I'm a teacher. I teach in elementary. I teach English in elementary in a public school, and I want to highlight the fact that the conception of public schools in Colombia is kind of different from here. So basically, in Colombia, and especially in Bogota, which is the capital, like those schools are in contexts where people is very vulnerable, especially because of the status of the families of the students. Also teach in secondary. I have some experience in secondary. I teach English and Spanish, but I want to highlight also that in Colombia we don't have the general thing is that we don't have teachers of English for elementary levels in public schools. There is a big difference between public and private. In private, they do have teachers of English, but in public school, we don't have. I am a teacher of English in elementary just because we have another project in the school, so we try to manage to give them classes. But in general, English teachers in Colombia are not in those levels. So with that in mind, I also forgot to mention that I had some other experiences in England teaching Spanish and also in India. And with that in mind, I thought in one moment, how do teachers, because in Colombia, well, we don't have teachers of English, but the elementary teachers must teach English without knowing the language. So they are forced to teach English without knowing the language. Why? Because that's what the educational policy says. So even though they don't have enough training, they are forced to teach English. So in the school where I work, I started a project to help those teachers to give them kind of methodologies to teach English based on the English level that they have. Um, so that I'm just telling you this because that is the basis of my research project in Colombia. So you will say, but why is it Mary? So what is the connection between that? I will tell you in a moment. So I'm a student in Colombia. This is my university, which is La Salle University. There is a partnership, like institutional partnership between La Salle University and St. Mary's University. So in 2019, I enrolled the doctorate program in education and society, and one of the requirements that I have in this program is to have an experience in another university. It could be national or international. So at that time, because of my field, I thought that maybe the university could be a good fit because all the, I mean, not all, but most of the literature that I found is related to teaching English as a foreign language comes from here. Okay, so that's why I thought at the beginning and then in 2020 I applied for a scholarship through Fulbright, but at that time was the COVID, and I didn't get the scholarship, so I uh, in the 2021 I just made the commission with St. Mary's, uh, bearing in mind that here there is the educational program and there is also a master program in ESL. So I said that is a good fit. So at that time I applied again, and then this year I obtained the scholarship. That's how I ended here. It ended here, and maybe if you have plans to go abroad, you can think of Colombia to make a postgraduate program. So La Salle could be a good fit for you. So about my research work, I'm telling you about this because one of the requirements for the scholarship was to present an essay about our research that in the doctoral work I'm conducting. So I present my research work and I have to present that and let them know there could be a very good connection between that and and the training process I will receive here. I'm not receiving any formal training process here, but I'm attending to some classes to reinforce or strengthen my skills in research in general. So this is the title of my research work. So English methodology for the training of pre-service teacher in the context of École Normale Supérieure. This is French, but the translation that I found is like teacher training colleges. So I will refer to that kind of schools from now. So I will tell you a little bit what is that. So in Colombia, you can, if you want to be a teacher, you can either go to a university and you can spend 5 years in the university, or you can go to those three teacher training colleges. It is like a technical program, but those teacher training colleges have some characteristics. It is basically a regular school. They in the same building you can find preschool, elementary, secondary, upper secondary. So imagine that you are studying for being a teacher, and in the same school, same building, there are kids around everywhere. It's like that. So you will find kids from preschool to upper secondary, and you will find like the training of teachers in the same building, most of the cases. In Colombia, there are 137 training teacher colleges, and every year 7,000 teachers graduate from those schools. And I will give you an idea of the conditions of those institutions. So what those teachers can do, well, when they are in the training process, they start the practice from the very beginning, and the practice is not only observing, but not also like making the class. Sometimes with the support of a teacher, sometimes they are not, but they have to conduct a class by themselves. That is something that happens, I would say, that from the first week when they start the process. The other thing is that they have to conduct a research project from the beginning. It's not only a project, they have to do it. And it is most of the cases action research. I don't know if you have to conduct a research project, but you have to do that. Like, they have to do that based on the practice. They study English language methodology. I mean, they study to teach all subjects, including English. Once they graduate, they can teach only in preschool and elementary, and they can be rural directors, which is like kind of principals of rural schools, only rural schools. And they have, or they should be prepared to teach all subjects, including that uh, there is nothing that guarantees that they can teach English because the conditions are not proper for that those kind of institutions. So there are no guidelines that let people know how they are being trained. There are like any official document that let us know what they are doing. So basically, when I already finished my field work, so basically what I found were different things in every single school. So sometimes in one school, for example, in one school I found that they just see English in one semester. In another I found that they study English just for the entire program. In others that they never had practice in English. In others that they have practice in every single semester. So it's kind of different. So this is but you would say like why English in Colombia? Like English is something that doesn't happen that you wouldn't find in Colombia around the corner. It's not something that you can easily find. But we are in that process of becoming bilingual because there is something behind related to global trades, and we are being funded by some other institutions abroad. So we have to respond to those policies and those requirements. So that's why we are in the process of becoming bilingual. I'm not going to center in any of those steps, but it's just to let you know that this is the long path that we have crossed to become bilingual, but none of those have taken into account those institutions, the one that I told you before. So basically, our national bilingual policy is centered in English, basically, although we have more than 65 indigenous languages in Colombia. So bilingualism is a matter of privilege. So if you speak English and Spanish, then you are privileged and you will have more opportunities of job. But if you are for example, you are bilingual in Quechua and Spanish, you will be seen as a problem for the educational policy. It's something like that. English is a mandatory subject in elementary and secondary school, colleges, and universities, but we don't have the same conditions in every single school, especially if we talk about the fact that we don't have the same learning environments in private schools or in public schools. For example, in private schools, they have English, they have language teachers, English language teachers from preschool, but in public school, we don't have teachers in elementary or preschool. In private schools, they have, let's say, 8 hours per week. In public schools, we just have 1 hour of English. So it's kind of weird. English is evaluated in national exams based on the levels of proficiency from the Common European Framework. I don't know if you are familiar with that. So, to measure language in Europe, there is a Common European Framework, which is basically like 6 levels. Yeah. So A1 and A2, that is a very basic level that you can introduce yourself, you can just say colors and things like that. That is the basic level. B1 and B2, there is intermediate level. That will be like my level, so kind of. And C1 and C2, that is like a almost native English. So we are measured according to the Common European Framework. And in the school, when you get to the highest level, which is 11, you are supposed to have a B1 level, which is intermediate. But we are measured the same way as private schools, even if we don't have the same conditions. And for example, if you want to get graduated, you are going to be graduated now, you have to demonstrate that you know English through an international exam. If you don't have that, you wouldn't be able to be graduated. In my case, that I'm conducting an enroll I enrolled a doctorate program, I have to demonstrate a B2 level. But just to give you an example, I have a friend who is studying with me and she knows science language. She is bilingual, but that is not taken into consideration. She needs to demonstrate English. Apart from that, nothing is important. There are inequity of conditions for learning English. There is a big gap, as I already said, between public and private schools. Just 1.33 of the English language teachers are are working in public schools in elementary levels, and this is just to give you an idea how many school English teachers we have in the public schools. So this is the amount of teachers, and just see out of this total, just this number is for preschool and elementary. I'm talking about the entire Colombia. So this is almost nothing. And most of them are placed in Bogota. Most of those teachers work for urban zones. And I want you to compare this other number, which is the amount of teachers graduated from the schools I already mentioned, the 2 years training. So most of them work for rural schools. So that is the teachers I'm conducting my research. And English is attached to better job opportunities, higher income, and social status, as I already said. And regarding the institutions that I already mentioned, there are some strategies that are being carried out by the language bilingual policy, but they are just centered in 10% of those 137. Why? They always say because there is no budget, because they are so far, because many reasons. So just 10% of those institutions are taken into account. And as you already mentioned, there is nothing that gives or that orient those schools to train teachers in language methodology. And just considering this fact that we have those teachers, most of them work for rural schools, I want to say that the concept of rural places in Colombia is very different from here. It's totally different. So in Colombia, rural conditions are related to lack of access roads. So basically, if you want to go to a rural school, it's a trip that you have to take. It's like I cannot explain, but it's like it takes hours. There are no transportation. Sometimes the roads you just have to walk because there are no roads. It's kind of like that. Uh, because of that, there are difficulty accessing basic services such as health, education, and drinking water. And for years, I wouldn't say that all rural conditions, but for years, they have been victims of armed conflict and illicit crops. So sometimes they are forced to move to the cities because there is violence in the places where they live. So those are the conditions that most of the teachers that I'm telling you have to face once they graduate. So this is the question that just came to my mind when I started exploring about this. And how are they being trained in English? There is such a big responsibility putting on them, just giving them the responsibility to give English to the students when they don't have enough knowledge in the language. So I center my research in that, and I'm trying to see what is the language ideology behind that. Like, what do they think about English? And I have found that in most of the cases, they relate English to better opportunities for them, for the teachers. And also doing something with the classroom practice that they do. So I'm seeing how are the classroom practices that they do in English. And then also, as I already mentioned, they have to conduct a research and also revising the research papers that they have published. It's not published, they have to print like a book and to put it in the library. So there is nothing online. I had to go to the schools and revise all the research papers that they have produced in relation to English, teaching English as a foreign language. This is the methodology. There are 137 schools, but I'm just working with five. Also, of course, I wanted to work with more, but the information is so, there is a lot of information, so I just put center in five. And well, this is kind of the instruments that I collected for every single category. And this is one of the rural schools I visited. I already finished my field work before coming here. I would say that one day before I kind of finished, but I still collecting some things that I just couldn't collect before I came here. This is one of the schools where they conduct the practice, which is a rural one. This is one of the groups of the students, of the future teachers. And this is the purpose of my visit. I want to expand my teacher perspective. I'm just talking with different kind of perspective, just let me reflect upon my own teaching practice and upon my research work. Of course, I wanted to let you know how is education in Colombia from a lens. I also want to identify meaningful insights for my research, what I have been done here, and make connections with future teachers and professors. So that's it. So thank you for your attention. I don't know if you have questions, if we have time for questions or something. Or maybe you can just email me in the future if you want. If you want to go to Colombia, please let me know and consider LaSalle for future for maybe. Yeah.
I just have a question about what would it look like as, I mean, I know very little Spanish. What would it look like if I were to say I wanted to study abroad? How would that look for somebody who doesn't speak Spanish being in a classroom in Colombia?
Like you are talking about if maybe you have the possibility to go there.
Yeah.
Well, there is a matter of privilege. So, as an American girl, like white American girl, like who speaks Spanish, like there are a lot of possibilities, and I would say that would give you a position of privilege in Colombia. So,
Okay.
if you're considering either studying or teaching, you will be in a privileged position.
Okay. So even as somebody who doesn't speak any Spanish, it's not something we'd want to rule out. Like it would still be an option.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? All right, so thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Okay.